Well, hello and welcome to week 5 of season 2 of the WTRL Zwift Racing League. We're here to kick off week 5 of the Community League in APAC. It's always such a good way to start. I'm Kate Bates, joined tonight by Anna Russell, a bit of a professor and connoisseur in Zwifting. And Anna, it's time for a team's time trial.
Yeah, but a team's time trial on a very, very tricky course. This one's going to see some huge explosions, maybe, or maybe some people will really nail it. You don't know, but this is one really tough course. So I'm glad I'm not out there.
Yeah, well, every week you kind of say you wish you were until about halfway through the racing. All right, let's take a look at the course profile. They're headed around the mighty metropolitan in New York City. Even as a points race, Anna, it's one of the toughest courses in Zwift. What have they got in store for a team's time trial?
Yeah, I mean, I'd basically be breaking this down into three. You start off with some rolling terrain, then you hit that glass road, and it really what I've called violently rolls. You got -8, +8, and then you hit that QOM, and that is so hard. It's only 1.2K long, but it goes up to sort of 14% right near the end. Big downhill, and then it rolls to the finish. If you've got any energy left after that QOM, that last third is really, really crucial.
Yes, well, it's one of the most technical and toughest courses there is in Zwift. It's only 20 kilometres. They've a 400-metre lead in, 20.4 kilometres in total, so 12 and a half miles if you want to look at it in that measurement. And I think that it's going to be pretty tough for the teams to have much of a strategy more than try and stay together and try and hold on. I think it's really, really different to what would happen if it was on a flat course. Let's just take a look at the standings so far to get a bit of a picture of what's on the line tonight. And in the women's A, we've got Zed Sun and Aero. Their Zed Sun have had a couple of back-to-back really good weeks, but Aero have consistently performed as well. And I actually learnt over the weekend that Aero is tied to one of the big universities in Australia, and because of COVID, they started an esports racing team to keep everybody motivated
cool.
and moving. So a big shout out to Federation Uni in Ballarat and the Aero gang there, and Jenny Pettinen runs that program, so that's pretty cool. We don't have any standings for the B, but let's take a look at the men's if we can have that. Or the Div C, Anna.
We got the C's here. So AHDRL, we ate the cake. We've got the AHDRL Comets in second, very close behind the AHDRL Spin Mafia. Then the Cruzettes, then the CMA Queen Bees, the Rave C's, and then finishing off with the Herd of Bilbies, those little rats with the kind of rabbit ears.
You keep describing them like that until it's Easter and you get a chocolate treat and you'll love them again. All right, let's take a look at the Div 1A men. This is a heck of a race. We've got Deepak on 78 points, tied with Beast Mode Crew on 78. I think that tonight will be a pretty ding-dong battle between those pair, especially when you have to cross the line with 4. So that'll be interesting. Team ZWC Blast is sitting in third. The Evo Savages in fourth. And Cryogen Super Banieres, and they are all pretty tight as well for that third spot. Wes number 2 in sixth, Smooth as Sun in seventh, WMZ All Stars in 8th, Cicely Stefanelli in 9th, and WTRL Pioneers in 10th.
And in the Bs, we have the Evo Barbarians in first. 3 points back, the Dirty Sprockets, AHDR Blowflies in third, Vision APAC in fourth, TV Gungna in fifth, Cryogen Etnas in sixth, the WMZ Bumbles in seventh, ZHQ Ravens in eighth, the Velo Club Melo Sabal Hibi Cycling Tips, that's always a bit of a mouthful, in ninth, and Tune Bikeworks in 10th.
Yeah, keep it simple, guys. Come on. Think of the commentators. All right, the Div C, we've got the AHDR, of course, the Aussie Hump Day Riders, Chances on the top of the table, Cryogen LT'd in second, Sportive and Beer Rollers, we love them because they've literally got a beer bottle in the back of their little jersey avatar, which is pretty cool. TT1 Carbos in fourth, the Chargers in fifth, TBR 46 Tooth in sixth, the Choppers in seventh, the Chasers in eighth, Evo Flux in ninth, and the Valhalla Lave Tin, which sounds like a foreign word for flower to me, in 10th. All right, that's
No D's
what we're
currently
looking
there.
at so far. It's a pretty tight race, Anna. I mean, I can't help but get pretty excited about the battle between DPAC and Beast Mode tonight, because
Oh,
it's been quite an interesting skew the last couple of weeks, because Beast Mode haven't actually come over the line first, so we haven't been commentating them for the win. In fact, Sam Lindsay has been doing an incredible job for DPAC, but how it's worked out, they've actually accumulated some more points in the overall. So we'll actually literally get to see them tonight. Last time trial, I think there was about 0.2 of a second between them. It's going to be pretty tight.
yeah. I think so, and I think I noticed last week when I rewatched the APAC division that the issue with Beast Mode and DPAC just going head to head is that they almost focus too much on each other and forget about some teams that may be behind. And last week they did get pipped on the post with Hashimoto, who went off on that big sort of solo run, and they didn't really chase him down at all. So could something happen, tonight? Could a smaller team just go, well, they're going to be looking at the splits of each other, let's just sort of sneak on in and take that win because now's the time to do it. These two are so consumed. DPAC Beast Mode. Let's get a World Elite Zwifters or an Evo coming up and shaking things up a bit.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. I think that they really need to run their own race, ride their own race, so to speak, and make sure that they just go out there with their own plan and focus on that. Let's go down and take a look at the actions so far. The riders are out on course. It's could be less than 30 minutes out there tonight, except that it is so lumpy that I think that will slow down the average speed a little bit, but only 20 kilometres. So it's a bit of a different effort than some of the earlier weeks.
Yeah, it's a short course that has a lot of punch though. And like I said at the beginning, I'd sort of split it into thirds almost. You've got the third leading up to the climb and the descent, and then you've got the last third where as I saw earlier in the Prem racing, if you've still got your full team and you've still got some energy in the tank, you can just gain massive time in that part after the downhill where a lot of teams will just blow up trying to keep a pace they can't sustain on the QOM. So good to see actually here with Team Aero. They've all gone Tron bikes. So there has been, I was very surprised that a lot of the Prem riders, they can't ride the Trons, but they can ride discs, and a lot of them weren't, which was really poor decision on their part. So it's good to see all these Tron bikes out. Either this or the Specialized Venge S-Works Superfly wheel is the bike choice I would go with on this kind of a course.
Well, there's been a lot of chat this week about the In Real Life Cycling Federation banning the Super Tuck. And I must say, Anna, when I
Mm.
first saw the news on Twitter, I immediately thought of Zwift, and I thought, I don't understand why they're banning the Super Tuck, but alas, it was in real life. I hope Zwift don't ban it. But it turned very heavily to the conversation about whether or not it is actually faster. And I found it quite interesting that people even question uh, the advantages, the time advantages and aero advantages of such things. But if we bring that into game, if all of the riders can get over the climb at a decent pace together, then potentially they can also all aero tuck down the other side and get that tiny little bit of recovery, because there literally isn't a flat meter in this course today. And it might be on those downhills, it might be the only chance to lower those heart rates a little bit.
Yeah, what I we're just going to have a look at Aero because I don't think they started with all their riders. They may only have 5 here. So we might just see a little replay. They've got all of them now, but it looks like they've dropped someone earlier, 9 seconds back there for 6R Aero. So you can just see there 8 seconds back. So they've obviously slowed down to get them back on. Oh, a bit of a I don't know about that tactic. You can finish with 4 riders, but maybe this is one of their stronger riders who's playing a crucial role on the climb. You can just see there, rider number 6R. So that's obviously their positions there. So she's the 6th rider in that position. I like when teams do that. Sometimes it's easier to see, but oh, not a good start for this team. You can see here they're already splitting a bit on this climb. Really, really crucial that the team looks after each other. So that rider at the front, we've got Jess Bemrose. I actually think I've raced with her. She might have guest rode on Saris once, actually. Great rider, but she's got to make sure she's riding to the ability of the 6th rider. So not going full gas and kind of creating those gaps and surges, which will just really come and hurt them later in the race.
Yeah, Exactly. The strongest climbers almost need to be sitting below threshold and making sure that the others are on their limit but not over their limit. It really is quite a balance, and it's quite unusual actually to have a team time trial on a course like this.
Yeah, I mean, I have done a little bit of study on how to team time trial on hilly courses. Not with a QOM in there, but there was a time trial somewhere in the UK recently that finished on a climb. So it finished there. It didn't have it sort of halfway through. And I think that makes this race quite exciting. But what it is really is that you can't be worried too much about the order of the team over the massive rolling parts we see here, where it's going up at 8%, down at 6, because you've just got to sort of have the heavier rider who can gain momentum jet down those downhills and everyone just tuck into their wheel. And on the uphill, just naturally the lighter rider will probably go up first, just tuck on their wheel and not be super concerned about getting out of order.
Well, we're watching Jojo Zulberg from Z Sun here. They look fairly neat. From all indications, they had a bit of a smoother start than the Aero girls. They've been a real standout this season. I mean, we've only had a number of teams in this division because of the way the cookie crumbled in terms of the timing of the community leagues. But I think that Z Sun have really stepped up even amongst that. And if you look at their individual performances, a lot of these riders could very well step up into the Prem League if they had the opportunity to do so.
Yeah, they could. I mean, probably not be performing at the top level like Heino did earlier today. That was just an absolute dominant display of team time trialing. What I have come to realize is that on courses like this, the more familiar you are with your teammates, the much easier it is because you know where people's inherent strengths and weaknesses lie. There are two distinct strategies you can follow on a course like this. One is on the rolling parts, be keeping your team order and pushing through. Save your high power riders for the last third of the course, where it's sort of the rolls aren't too bad and they can really push that power. But the other strategy that I saw play out when I looked at some of the guys' power numbers after their racing this morning was actually to just go with momentum. So there was no order whatsoever. It's just whoever sort of rolled to the front took a turn. And it's good, it keeps the speed high, but it also means everyone's basically doing a solo time trial, which is really, really hard, obviously. 25 minutes of just full power effort.
I was pretty impressed just then we saw two of the Z Sun riders get dagged off the back a little bit, but they very quickly regrouped and waited without having to slow the bunch down too much. There's a fair skill in that because riders will get dropped, but you have to react pretty quickly. If you don't react quickly to slowing down and allowing a rider to get back on, it's kind of a double whammy. Firstly, you have to slow down a lot more in order to let them come back on, and that takes a lot of momentum and speed out of the team. But also, it does a lot of damage to the rider who's being dropped because they're pushing for longer on their own. So there's obviously really
Mm-hmm.
good communication going on there. We've gone now over to the C's, the women's C's, and we're looking at Jade Gladwin from the Comets, and they're with six. They're only a kilometre in. You'd kind of hope that they're all still together at this point, but I mean, few style points, Anna, because they're all looking pretty good on their coordinated Tron bikes and orange kit.
Yeah, I mean, you know my thoughts on Orange, though. I mean, I do like that they're all matching, so I'll let them have that.
I think you're going to have to get past that, given it's the colour of Zwift, though.
Oh, it almost makes me feel ill. So, but I do, I do like the two out the front have got the Tron bikes. I think the ones behind them have got slightly aero setups, but this is the kind of course you really want that Tron or that Super 9 wheel. So that may come back later in the race where you really need that aero advantage. But they're looking good so far. I like their kind of order. They're sort of they are turn taking. It looks like FM here is definitely pace setting. I like the fact that a lot of them are super tucking just these tiny little downs. They're just gaining any speed possible. And this is what I mean about that momentum coming through. So all those riders sort of pushed ahead now, and I think this is where you've got to be a bit flexible and a really good DS comes into play because they'll sort of let the team know what order they need to be in, who's got the momentum, who should take a little turn at the front. So hopefully these teams have all got DSs, because that's actually what will make the biggest difference.
Well, I've got this week. I've got a little bonus soft spot for the AHDR and AHDRL cruise. I had an in real life visitor come and see me at the Australian National Road Championships, which were in real life on the weekend. That was a bit strange, I got to tell you, having actual people around. But they gave me a beautiful pin, so we'll have to show you that if you can see that here. They gave me a Zwift pin and an AHDR pin, so that was pretty cool. It was good to put a few faces to the names that we always commentate on, and it really is such a community event out there. So an extra special boost and bias to that crew tonight.
Oh, I love that. I love that you got some pins. That's very cool. And it looks like we're going to have a look at the cruisettes now. Oh, this is not an image you want to see. No gaps forming here would be ideal. Even though there may not be a sort of draft advantage on a 6% climb, there is just a psychological advantage of being stuck to your teammate's wheel and not dropping. Any kind of drop, you just think, oh gosh, this queuing is going to be horrible. So this is the time for, I think it's Joyce here, just to rein it in. If they've got a DS, they just need to tell her, chill out, help your team up here. It's all about looking after the team. Because it looks like Renee, she may be the one struggling, and maybe that could be one of their dropped riders. I think you could have some strategic drops on this course. You could have someone really power through that first 5 kilometers and then just say see you later as soon as they hit this glass road segment.
Yeah, I think Joyce, her heart rate is 150 when she was pushing off the front. Renee here, struggling to jump back on, but she's going to do it. So good on her for fighting that. But her heart rate's up around 190. So that kind of goes to show the difference we have across any given group. But it's the community league. This is pretty common to have these different strengths within a team. Now, it'll be interesting. Have we got a rider dropping back to help Renee come back on? That would be with Rich T. That would be, I love these names. That would be a very helpful thing to do. Possibly Renee has run out of steam and may not be doing it. And special mention to Rich T. Between the afro and the name, I think we've got a new favourite rider here.
That's some style. That is awesome. I love it.
Style. And I
kind
think
of a retro kit too.
Yeah, I know. It's a pretty good get-up, isn't it? I think she was going back to help Renee, and even she will be getting a bit of a draft effect even with that little gap. So that's good camaraderie. But Joyce does need to just take the foot off the accelerator there and make sure they can regroup a bit. It's still very early days. They've got 20 kilometres out there, remember? So to only be a few K in, you kind of want to be in a bigger group than that. We'll go and have a look at Spin Mafia. So the Aussie Hump Day riders have quite a number of teams out on course. I think it would be fair to say, Anna, that even though they're community mates, they're all very much a team out there. Look at this. They're catching the herd of bilbies. How do you describe them? Little rat-like things with big ears
Rats
or
with
something
bunny
like
ears? But apparently great chocolate. So
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
This is a little bit of a messy overtake, but you can understand that on a climb, it's going to be a little bit like that. It looks like the bilbies, they're beautifully coordinated. Look at that's actually very cool nicks. They look a little bit South African-like. There's a lot of fashion talk tonight, Anna, but I feel like they're really up their game for it.
Well, I think there's so much fashion talk because so much of this APAC League community is now like either bringing their absolute A game or choosing horrific styles. And I'm not sure which one this is. I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean, I've been having a lot of people Facebook messaging me. There's been a bit of chit chat. There's a lot of fashion police memes going up on the WTRL Facebook page. So, I mean, people are just asking for it, right? If you're kind of going to throw it out there, then yeah, I love it though. One of those, they had the herd of bilbies. One of them had the red gloves and the orange hat, which style points down. But I do like the way they're riding this. So they're staying together like a wee little herd. They've just got 5 riders though, so not sure if they dropped someone or if they just started with 5. But their avatars are looking pretty badass.
Yeah, they are. when you've got five, they're doing actually a pretty good job of not a strung out line. We've talked about previously the different styles of teams time trials, but let's just go over the different ways you can approach it, Anna. We'll start with the blob. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so the blob. I mean, I think most teams have realized that's not the most efficient. So that's where you sort of have a rider out the front, and then everyone just blobs behind them. The issue is when someone's coming through to take a turn, it gets all a little bit confusing, and then you got stuck on each other's drafts. And I think most people have realized that's not the ideal team time trial formation. The ideal one is the straight line formation that is beautiful there, CMA team, and even here the AHDRL comments. They're looking good there. That straight line formation as they're coming through for a pass actually on We Ate the Cake, I think. So that's going to be two AHDRL teams up against each other. But the straight line formation is good. But this course kind of throws everything out the window. And a lot of it is on which of your riders are going to be stronger on which parts. So on the hill, you need to find your good hill climber and they pace set. And then on the downhill, you find your heavier rider, and they're going to allow everyone to get in the super tuck behind them. And in that last part, you've got your strong, strong power riders, and they've just got to pull the team through and take really long turns. So I think formation not as important tonight. I think it's getting your riders onto the parts of the course that really suit them, and everyone knowing what their role is.
And there's definitely some value in if you do have one particularly strong climber in doing the blob. We're watching the Rave girls on screen now. They've also got a fabulous jersey. They are sitting. If we look at the split times there. Oh, Spin Mafia are out to a belting start there. They're nearly 38 seconds up over the Rave squad, who is then another 13 seconds ahead of the Queen Bee. Now, they do start in reverse order of who is leading overall. So down the bottom, we've got We Ate the Cake, Comets and Cruzettes. When they do go through that first time check, we kind of expect these split times to get faster as they go. But that's kind of a kudos to Spin Mafia, who have come through in a pretty good time there. So the time checks are at 6K, 10K and 16K. We should know by the 10K mark how they're faring generally, but that 16 will be a much better indicator just given that they don't have too many big climbs left at that point. So they will have been over the guts of it there. Rave, they're looking still pretty neat as they approach the top of this climb here, but climbs of 8 to 10% and a little bit steeper, it is very difficult to maintain that smooth power and all go across the top together. So that's another flavour of this team's time trial, Anna, is that even if a few gaps do open up, as long as they're within distance of each other and they're not too blown out, I don't think it's necessarily too much cause for concern. And they can do themselves a disjustice by waiting too much and taking the power off and that blowing out. But back to the A's here. And isn't this a bit of a different picture? Look how quickly they're moving along.
Yeah, it looks as though they potentially have already gone over the climb. It looks like they've just done this long sort of glass road part after the climb. So this is unreal that Aero still has 6 riders. Usually you'd sort of drop one on that climb, but this is amazing that they've managed to keep all 6, and this will pay dividends now. These guys will be so strong on this last part of the course. They're already quite far ahead of Zed Sunderstruck at that 10K mark. Looks like about 50 seconds, which is just phenomenal. And this team has come out to play. The Zed Suns looks like they've dropped 1 rider on that climb. They're all sitting in that super tuck, which is great. That's the right strategy for going down this climb. Get someone on the front with a lot of momentum off the QOM, and they just get a huge amount of speed, and they can recover down here before they hit the last sort of 9K of this race. But wow, Aero is putting on quite the show.
Yeah, this is a really big ride from them. Their time 9:40 through the 6 kilometre mark. We were just looking at the C women, and the fastest time there so far was 11:29. So that gives you a bit of an indicator of just how quick this A category group is. But it's actually been Zed Sun the last couple of weeks who've been a bit more dominant than Aero. So this is a really classy comeback ride, I think, and a little bit of a swing around. So good to see. And good technique. I mean, the Zed Sun ladies, they look pretty controlled and going well together. Let's just flick over to the Bees TBR
Ah,
Smile On. We've
yay.
got some favourites
TBR
in here.
Smile On.
They've been in touch, Anna, I believe, sending a little bit of info through and saying hi.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like what they're doing right now. It looks like they've gapped a few of their riders and just got two out the front. So, I love this team, but this is not a fantastic strategy we've just tuned into from there. So, think Margarita has just dropped off the back there in ones and twos. This is not ideal. If you're wondering how to race a team time trial, this is not really it. But they did send me a message actually earlier on today. So this is their nickname is the Kermits. There's Tess out there, and her nickname is Take My Wheel Tess. There's Jump on Board Julia, Motor on Margarita, Cake Can't Catch Me Kimberly, Just Say How Hard Sarah, and 5 Watts More Lucy. And we've got Holy Moly Monique Hitter, I think, who is their DS. I think, or it's Margarita. No, their DS tonight is Captain Wonder Wheels. So there we go. Captain Wonder Wheels.
Captain
Got to get
Wonder
that team back
Wheels.
together.
Yeah, I think Captain Wonder Wheels is definitely my favourite. But I have to say, every time I see Margarita, I just think of either pizza or a cocktail. So either way, we like Margarita simply for the added connotations there. But she's in no man's land, and you had a lot of decorum when you suggested this was probably not the most effective strategy. But they do need to regroup. They do need four to cross the finish line together. The time is taken off the fourth rider. So if they continue for the last 8 kilometres like this, then the poor rider in fourth, who we're watching now, that's a very long day for her.
Oh, 6 seconds back. I think what I'd be doing now is just this rider here, jump onto Margarita's wheel. Margarita was descending quite fast there. So I think if she can get on Margarita's wheel and then just have Margarita pull her up, they're only 2 seconds back now. So maybe that was their strategy, struggle up a bit on the climb and then just all come back together on the descent. So I haven't seen that before. But now the four of them are back together. So I think they should. Well, Lucy from TBR is now a minute back. Jay Wood, another minute back. So this is the four that will go to the finish. And if they can now just compose themselves, get into that order taking, this is a really great part of the course. It's quite straight and flat, so it's perfect to just get back in your groove and forget about what happened on the climb.
So what I will say is it was hard when we joined them at first to know exactly what they were doing because we just came in when they were split all over the place. But it is a pretty valid strategy to climb kind of at a pace that you can manage and then come back together. The one way I think they can refine it if they want to continue to do this in future races is when the other two riders are starting to catch back on, that the front two needed to accelerate just a little bit more because they lost a bit of time and a bit of momentum when Stolhart and Margarita actually flew straight past them, and then they all had to wait a bit and regroup. So a little bit more awareness on that regroup. I think they're not necessarily in a bad position. Okay, now we are looking here at Lam Kong in the caffeines. She's really impressed me the last couple of weeks. She's a really good climber, so I think they'd be lucky to have her, and definitely I think she'll be doing some of the pacemaking going up those climbs. They've only got four, so they can't afford to lose anybody else here, but if they can keep a good rhythm going, then they're actually ticking along pretty well. I mean, they've lost a little bit more time on TBR Smile On into that 10 kilometre mark, but it's still only a 17-second gap, so that's not unassailable if Smile On don't keep together.
Yeah, and Smile On may have lost a bit of time that we haven't seen yet, just with that sort of explosion that happened on the downhill with huge gaps between riders. So if Caffeines has managed to stay together on the down, that group dynamic of the downhill will have gained them a lot of what I'd call free time because you're sort of recovering on the way down anyway. And if that's got more speed than the team in front, then that's a perfect situation. So when we see that 16K split, I wouldn't be surprised to see Caffeines a little bit of a gain on TBR Smile On. But these guys are riding pretty well together. Kong, like we've said, very strong. And I just saw some really strong pulls there from Kong on the front. And she might be the sort of pivotal part of this team leading into the last 10K.
Yeah, she's got a really solid 20-minute watts per kg Lam Kong on the 3.7 mark, which is really impressive. And certainly she'll need to, watch her power and make sure she doesn't drop too many of her teammates. We're overlooking at the Seas now. We're back with Gladwin and the Comets. I love that team name. They're climbing. This is a nice site climbing. We've keep seeing bunches split up all over the joint. But the danger time is kind of when it hits that 10% mark, isn't it, Anna? Because even the tiniest acceleration can make such a difference and open real gaps. And that's exactly what we just saw happen when it went up to 8 or 9%. It's flattened out a bit, but those gaps, those couple of metres between riders are still there.
Yeah, you've got to be so careful with the surging on this climb. So there's 2 or 3 portions which sort of flatten out, and they're on one of these at the moment. And this is where your team can come back together, and then you hit straight up again into a sort of 10%. Even at the end, it goes up to 14%. I mean, it's pretty brutal. But if you start surging those, you just drop riders off the back so easily. And we can just see now it's they've got 3 at the front who might be the pace setters, 3 behind. So maybe that is a strategy a few teams are going with. Pace set up. Don't mind if gaps form, because those riders at the back can catch up on the downhill. So could be what the Comets are doing here as well, as we see it picking up again 10%. There's a lot of passes happening on this climb too, which is really tricky because you are at kind of a slow pace anyway, so you can't really surge past riders. As we see McFad here from Hurd, looks like Hurd has really detonated on this climb. It's not really a good strategy that you're seeing here. So the Bilbies have exploded. All those little rats with bunny ears are just hopping all over this QOM.
Look, I think they're cute and cuddly, and I think their outfits are great. It is a danger. When we talk about surging, I think it's interesting to look at it both forwards and backwards, because we've seen a number of times tonight that somebody's surged off the front by just increasing their power by a couple of percent and it opening a big gap. And their reaction to that has been to almost stop pedaling and really surge backwards. And that on again, off again can actually really affect the overall speed. So I think, our advice definitely has to be, Anna, that you've got to really work on regulating the power and not increasing quickly or decreasing quickly.
Oh, exactly. You've almost just got to think about flattening out the course as best you can. As we just saw there, a massive sprint, but this is actually a perfect tactic here. This was what I was talking about before. Get your heavier rider or your good descender, put in some massive pedal strokes over the top just before they hit the downhill, get a huge amount of speed, super tuck, and everyone will latch onto their wheel. And that just creates huge momentum. So the super tuck is fast, but only if you put in a huge amount of momentum before. So I'd be getting up to around that 70k an hour and then get into the super tuck and you will blast this downhill. And this is what this team's doing. Great to see. That was a good tactic from Reed.
Well, the super tuck also gives some really much needed relief, because one of the hard things about teams time trials versus a points race or a sprint race or something is that constant pressure on the pedals. And so this is really good. We just saw We Ate the Cake all dropping into that super tuck together. If they've got a good team director on their side, then they'll actually be able to instruct them when to go down and when to go up. And I think that can add not only to increasing their recovery, but also increasing their speed.
Yeah, and look at the lead that We Ate the Cake has got, 1944 through the 10K. I mean, that's looking, gosh, I've got to do some really quick math here, but that looks about a minute and a half ahead of the next team, the Spin Mafias. So they're just absolutely crushing this course. And it looks like they've done some definite recons because they knew when to push to get that downhill speed. They've really come into a nice little tight group now. So yeah, applauding those guys. Great riding, and it's showing in their massive gaps.
Yeah, I mean they had around a 40-second gap, or just under after 6K. 4K later, they've more than doubled that. So it's like they've gained momentum and they've kept going and they've really worked with that. We're looking at the CMA Queen Bees. We've got Letty here, and Letty, I spoke about her a few weeks ago. She was our soigneur at the Australian track cycling team for a long time, and she was an incredible athlete, like multi-sport athlete herself. She's not from a cycling background, and I think in some ways this shows that she doesn't quite recognise how strong she is here. But Letty, you got to back off a little bit, but not too much. You don't want them to blow past you when they do catch up, but you do need to wait for them. I think one part of the community leagues is that the riders are kind of discovering what their strengths and capabilities are, and sometimes that can change week in and week out. But Letty's certainly been watching the cyclists for a long time, but she's relatively new to actually riding the bike.
I would call that the hero maneuver. So it's sort of like surge off the front and go, whatevs, look at my power, ladies. Come and get it. And now the ones at the back are probably really struggling to get back on her wheel. Looks like she's slowing it down now, though. So maybe she's got a little bit excited on that glass road. There's a nice little sort of downhill portion and picked up a bit of speed, but no, she's definitely lowered those watts now, more down at the 115 range. She was sort of up around the 4 watts a kg, but she's played the team game here, waited for them to catch up, and that's awesome work.
Well, she's got to move now. And you know what I think is interesting for Letty is she spent a lot of years literally working with the world's best and most powerful cyclists. And so for her to be able to perform in any way, she just had to go flat chat to even compare or keep up. And so you translate that into the community leagues, and she's got this mentality where she's just got to go, go, go. And so it's a bit of an exercise in self-control for her, and she will learn. She's certainly got the goods and got the power. And CMA, it's great to see them with a number of teams through this division. We ate the cake. They're coming up for an overtake here. They are leading. They were last off in the team's time trial here. So they're coming up toward the CMA ladies there. They need to be careful when they're doing the overtake that the rider at the front doesn't accelerate a little bit. That's Natalie on the front there. They've got 3 of them, and then a bit of a gap is opening back. It's at 1 second and then 2 seconds back again. So We Ate the Cake need to have a little bit more control. CMA are still in 2 groups here, but they're looking like they might regroup a little. And as we say that, We Ate the Cake have all regrouped a bit. So they've now got 5 riders back as they start making that overtake.
Yeah, and this is dodgy, this time in a race where you've got, you saw just there, We Ate the Cake. They slowed up a little to get their rider on, but that meant they kind of got stuck behind CMA a little bit. This is real danger time. You've got to surge through that team in front. I mean, there is etiquette to how to ride a TTT on Zwift, and this race course kind of needs it more than any other. You've got to surge through that team in front of you. It's almost your responsibility as the passing team to make sure that you've pushed through, and then that team, once you've passed through, can kind of drop off a little. As long as they've sort of got 3 seconds back, then they can sort of resume what they were doing before, and they'll end up sort of dropping off and not getting stuck to a draft. But really important here, and that team did it perfectly. So We Ate the Cake surged on through CMA, and CMA dropped back. So that was good to see. No sort of passive aggressive messages popping up on screen, and I like that. As we look at Rave now, so they've popped down, looks like nearing the last about just over 3 kilometers until they finish, looking pretty strong here. So they're not doing too bad, still probably sitting in about 4th or 5th on the road. It's quite tight actually between 2nd to 5th, so we'll see what shakes out at the finish line, but looks like a couple of them are sitting up slightly, their avatars are, and sort of cruising in a bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's 20 kilometres total. They've got just over 4 kilometres left to go. Their heart rates are pretty controlled. There are still a few gaps opening up, though. They do need to, in every instance possible, learn from these leagues and how to race, because we've seen a few teams make a few little fudgies tonight, and it's a good opportunity to fine-tune that a little bit. We've got Spin Mafia here, another Hump Day rider ladies team, and we've got a lot of them in this C League, which is unreal to see. They're down to 4, but they all seem to be quite well bunched up and looking after each other at this point, and they're on solid watts, sitting around the 250 to 300 watt mark the whole time. Is certainly an admirable pace to hold. Now we've got the fellas over on the right side, Anna. They're 4.3k in. We're in for a bit of a battle tonight. We've got Phoenix out on course, and of course Deepak and Beast Mode, who will be inevitably end up talking about quite a lot. They will go off last and second last because they do start in reverse order of how they are standing overall.
Yeah, so that is going to be one battle to watch. I did actually want to note there is a little thing I found out in Zwift. So I don't know if this is common knowledge. Tell me if you're watching if it is common knowledge. But if you look at that bike, that Tron that the lead rider is on, there are certain Trons you can pick. When you slide the little line on what color you want, you'll see that the front angle, her wheel is pink. On the side, it's blue. You can actually get a two-tone Tron by just adjusting that little slider to hit exactly in between two colors. So I don't know if anyone else knew that. I don't know if it's common knowledge. I found it out, and you can pick some really wicked looking bike colors just by moving that little slider into a perfect little point between two colors.
Well, given how few actually choose bikes with that mixed color, I would suggest that that's a bit of an unknown. So we'll see if anybody adjusts it from next week. The Spin Mafia, Jodie Hamilton, just pushing slightly off the front there. She's quite a wonderful social media user and engager. It's great to have her in the community league, and she kind of really embodies what it's all about, to be part of the league and part of the fun here in the WTRL Zwift community racing leagues. Now, if we look at let's just take a look at the split times, because they've gone through that 16 kilometre
well
time
ahead.
check, 14. Yeah, we ate the cake. They've really had a very good day out on course. So nearly 2 minutes into Spin Mafia. Rave see another nearly minute back, and then another minute and a half back to the Queen Bees. So they've had a pretty good day. Herd of Bilbies usually, I would say, might pick up a little bit by the end because they've had some good teams time trial rides, but we are still waiting for them to come into that 16 kilometre time check. 20 kilometres, of course, is the finish.
Yeah, that's quite the lead by We Ate the Cake. But when we watched them, when we had the sort of the visuals on that team, they looked phenomenal, both on the climb, on the downhill, and then rolling through turns again. So I'm not surprised to see they've gained another sort of 45 seconds on that second team. We can just see them coming in now. They're sort of rolling around to the finish. Like I said, really hard to keep in that formation when the road's going, up at 4%, down at 3%. Really, really tricky team time trial course, especially with that QOM thrown into the mix. And the teams that are just going to really lose a lot of time are the ones who just went too hard and burnt too many matches on that QOM, or got really split up like we saw and end up riding the downhill with almost no momentum just as solo riders. So these guys have sort of done a masterclass here. They're riding really well, really impressed with the work they've put in. I think this definitely shows that they've recon the course, they know whose strengths are where, and they've made the most of that. Look like they have dropped one rider off the back, but that could have been a sort of strategic drop. So yeah, great job here, We Ate the Cake. Loving how you've raced this one.
So let's jump across and take a look at the men now that we've seen the women and how it's done. You're right, they've given us a bit of a masterclass. So let's see if the blokes can live up to that. We're over with Phoenix. This isn't too bad. A little bit of a split up the climb there, but come back together. But this is the moment I was talking about, Anna, where when it does split and come back together, those riders at the front need to anticipate that a little bit more to stop this, the interruption of speed that's happening. Now, given that's a pretty tough thing to do in the virtual world, this can be smoothed out a little bit with a little bit of practice and a little bit more communication between them. But if the four of those can regroup without dropping any speed, they certainly they certainly haven't dropped the ball here. So let's just take a bit of a replay here, because we've got this is 3K back, and we've got an early overtake by the sickly Stefanelli, the Italian team. Now, this looked like a pretty smooth overtake, Anna, like they're in pretty good shape. But we're now understanding that they're now 43 seconds back. So
Something's
what's
happened
happened there. Yeah, but that was a pretty, I mean, they started quick. Bearing in mind, it's only
Oh,
5K
here we
in.
go.
So look
There's
at
someone dropping off.
this is
Oh, they're
this
both
is
going to
something
zero.
going
Why
on
were they
there.
going to zero? That's
Hmm.
not good.
I wonder if they had some technical issues there, but that certainly does not look how it should. Got two out the front
No,
that are now
Stefan
waiting. Hmm.
A Leo's had a technical. A Leo looks like he's sitting there 0 watts for a very long time, and unfortunately, I think that was their fourth rider. Yeah, it was. They've only got 4 riders out there, and they've had a technical that's absolutely devastating. They've probably had to get off the trainer and try and fix that and get back on course. That is always the risk when you've only got 4 riders. Oh man, 41 seconds. You just want them to catch up again. That's brutal for these guys to have started so strong and then had a technical. But you've just got to have that full suite of riders. You never know what's going to happen out on course, and you need sort of the plan Bs there as well. And I'm stoked that they've all gone back and regrouped, come back together, and they're getting a lot of time on the Phoenix group in front of them. Hopefully they don't blow up. Hopefully they're not sort of riding in anger at the moment. But oh man, that's tough to see.
Well, there was in real life racing we saw on the weekend in Australia with the Aussie Nationals. There were a number of falls, especially in the criteriums, and really interesting, Anna, was the comments that came from some of the riders that weren't injured but were able to rejoin. Was that it actually helped their race because it spiked their adrenaline and really got them going. And there is an element of that, I think, when you have a mishap, whether it be a light fall or whether it be a technical problem, it does really spike that adrenaline and that cortisol, and it gets your heart rate going and it gets you moving a little bit. In saying that, you don't wish for it, but sometimes that compensates somewhat for a little bit of the disaster that can cause. But I actually think there were two of the riders who had
Mm,
some technical problems because both Leo and Tasso went to zero very quickly, both at a really inopportune time. And it looked to me like the other two riders in Fagarazzi and Osso were then scrambling to figure out what was going on and how they could respond to that. Now, Leo is off the back again. Is this a technical problem or did that spike in adrenaline we were just talking about kind of push him over the edge while going up a climb? I really hope these guys can get back together because that's really unfortunate. And it's very clear they were on a really good one.
I don't know where these guys are from in Italy, but I'm just Googling the weather at the moment in Italy because sometimes when you see dropouts like that happening to multiple teammates from the same country, it can be because there's like a crazy storm going on. I know I race with quite a few girls from Quebec, and they've sort of been going through some gnarly ice storms, and you're always a bit worried about the internet connection. But it looks like it's a balmy sort of 13 degrees Celsius, 79% humidity, 18 kilometre an hour winds. So perfect actual conditions where they are. So who knows what's going on, why they're sort of facing these little dropouts.
I feel like you may be taking the mickey out of me, Anna, because before we came on air, I was complaining about the weather in Ballarat and how it was 12 degrees and utterly unpleasant and unworkable for me. Now you're saying it's delightful for the Italians. I see what you're doing there, but you do have a fair point. And there is never an Australian who can claim that there is a snowstorm interrupting their internet connection. I can tell you that much.
Maybe just like snakes in the wiring or something.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
look,
yeah. A huntsman chewed through your cable or something like that. I don't actually think huntsmen can chew through anything, but it's a good myth to put out there.
and this is Team Aero here. So they performed very well. Their female team, I believe, in the Premier Division earlier today. So these guys, again, only 4 riders. So we do see this a bit more in the community teams just because people have, real life things going on. I've just seen someone comment on our Facebook she wasn't able to race because of hashtag mum duties. But 4 riders here from Aero. It looks like they've maybe just started with this number, and it's going to be quite hard, but they all look like they're sort of keeping together, staying at a good pace. It's when you've got one who's really strong and one who's really struggling that this can be a tough time for those 4 riders. But I like the way these guys are riding. They're catching those in front, the Italian team who are having those technical issues. But I like the Aero team tonight. They're looking good. All matching bikes. It's a nice thing to see.
Yeah, they're well coordinated. And again, I think these fellas are out of Federation Uni in Ballarat. So really cool that one of our big universities has really gotten behind esports, and it's not only some of their students and athlete students, but also some of the staff. So I think that that's really cool that they're doing that. And as for the hashtag mum duties, that's a far bigger technical than any snowstorm ever could be. So good, good luck to her this evening, and hopefully we'll see you next week on the bike.
Yeah, exactly. Um, and WTRL Pioneers, these guys are pretty good in this league. I think they'll be keeping a nice sort of tight formation. They probably race in the WTRL team time trials that happen on a Thursdays and Fridays, I believe, every week. So I think these guys will be a nice tight unit. Looks like they're gaining a little bit of time on TBR behind them. So good to see them out here in that sort of black and yellow kit. And we have seen the first time check from the Phoenix Cycling Collective, 9:30 at the 6K mark. So that's our benchmark now. We'll see where all the other teams line up against that.
Well, that's interesting because our Team Aero women in the A's, they went through that 6K in 9:40. So that is certainly the fastest we've seen on course tonight so far. I have a feeling that Beast Mode might fly through there and shave a little bit of time off that. But it's been a good start for the Phoenix Cycling Collective. You were talking about how some of them formed good formations. Let's just take a quick look at these league standings. APAC and Beast Mode, look at them, 78. They are tied up the top there. And as we go down, this is the reverse starting order. So the Pioneers have been out on course first, followed by Sickly, Stefanelli, and so on and so forth. They're in reverse order. So bearing in mind, WTRL Pioneers are actually the first that are out there on course. But I think they have actually been passed now by Sickly, Stefanelli. So the Italians, it's been a bit of an on and off day for them, but they're doing well. So the WTRL Pioneers, Anna, you were saying that they do quite a lot in the weekly time trial leagues. It's interesting, I think, to consider that sometimes you get so used to what your teammates' strengths are that if one rider's having a bit of a bad day, it can really throw off the whole kind of rhythm and juju of the whole team, because you just come to expect something very specific from the other athletes. And so you do need to be a little bit agile. No matter how many of these you do, you've still got to be able to think on your feet.
Exactly. Before I go into an answer there, can you just give me a definition of juju?
I knew you were going to ask that. Look, I think it's the vibe, Anna. It's just the general feeling. It's the general rhythm. I mean, for any Aussies who have seen The Castle, they would understand what I say when I say it's the vibe.
I love it. And I've actually just seen a note coming in here from Margarita. So I saw her pop this up that they just faffed the start a little bit, got too excited, and it's not TTT season if someone doesn't jump the gun. So, I mean, you bring that into it as well. Everyone just gets so nervous for these. As a DS, you get nervous. As a rider, you get nervous. You've got all that technical stuff to sort of start with, get your trainer paired, sit there in the pairing screen, come back and be able to go. And so, nice to see that they just maybe got a little bit too excited, and that's why they sort of blew apart their team a little bit. But back to the juju comment. Yes, so I think knowing your riders really well, but I think what I reckon is really important, this is where a really good DS comes in, I think, is knowing your plan A, B, C, and D. So okay, someone has a technical at the start. Okay, what do we do now? What's the order? Who's going to take the leads at these parts? Say the climber that you've pegged to be pacing the climb is having a real shocker. Okay, well, who's your 2IC? Who can then push up? So I think just having a whole bunch of sort of different plans. And I'd say in this course, it's really important to just look after your team. So if you're feeling awesome, don't do that hero maneuver of going off the front and exploding the legs behind you. It's all about looking after each other.
Yeah, and I think that we can put faffing in the same dictionary as juju there. So we'll keep adding to that little Zwift urban dictionary. The World Elite Zwifters, they're doing a pretty good job. They're not very coordinated outfit-wise, Anna. How many times do we have to ask them to wear the same jersey, fellas? But they do have some impressive setups here.
Yeah, their actual blue jersey is beautiful, but they've just got a sort of a random, I think that's the 100-kilometer kit that someone's wearing. So obviously they're just wanting to let everyone know that they've put in some miles. Which I'll appreciate. That shows that you're a pretty good Zwifter if you've ridden 100K on there. Not 100 miles though. So keep riding, get that black kit, ride the 100-mile kit. But there are also a couple of them rocking that
You
sort of
are
red.
a harsh mistress, Anna Russell. 100K is kind of impressive, but poof.
But go do that 160. Come on. This team though, you've got 3 of the Tron bikes, and then someone's sort of on a not a great setup at the back. So maybe a bit more of a low level Zwifter just pulling in the back. They've got the good wheels. That does look like, I don't even think that's the 808s though. I think that might just be the 404s. And that S-Works is not the most aero choice you could have gone for. I think probably the Canyon Aero Road 2021 would have been a lot better, but there we go. That's probably why they're sitting at the back a little bit. As we look at TBR, so we saw them a lot in the women's field.
Hold on. You want to move on from that critique there, Anna, but you are in fine, harsh form this evening. Watch out, riders. And if any teams aren't out on course yet, you've got a very short amount of time to fix whatever you need to before Anna gets a hold of you.
Well, there we go. And I don't know, we just actually popped on that TBR rider there for a sec as I changed topic pretty quickly, but they were looks like they've fallen off their team. So unfortunately, they've got a nice little group of 4 still going. So you do have to finish with 4. So this is good for them. But I think what we'll see, and I'm really excited to see that Beast Mode DPAC sort of mano-a-mano competition, is if one of those teams can cross over the KOM with the full suite of 6 riders, they're going to absolutely crush it. So let's see what happens, because kind of even on looking at that going up the KOM, I wouldn't be able to say which team would have the strongest set of 6, because you can only go as fast as your slowest rider. So we don't really know enough about those 6th rider positions. So who's your money on, Kate? Who do you think? Beast Mode, DPAC?
Well, I quite like Beast Mode for this evening, and I'll tell you why. Because they've got quite a good mix of riders between triathletes, continental level road cyclists, like under 23s, and rowers. And all of them are quite strong when it comes to, and they've got some pretty powerful sprinters, but they're also, here they are now. They're all very good athletes at pacing and going for longer efforts. If you look at their power numbers, they've all got pretty good, especially 5-minute. And when it comes to teams' time trials, you don't necessarily need that because you do get the recovery. But I reckon that these guys, they're with 5, so interesting to think who they may have lost so far, but they are 14 kilometres in.
They are crushing it, because I'm thinking they're at the top of the table. They would have started second to last or last, and they've got teams just up the road. They've passed Cryogen and Evo. So these guys are absolutely blitzing it. You can just kind of see with that pace, 50k an hour now that they're riding. These guys are motivated. So I don't think they liked getting beaten last week, and they've really come out here to play, because this just looks strong.
It's not really kind of part of the German temperament to enjoy being beaten and not have it motivate you a little bit more.
Exactly, and I think just looking at this rider off the front, Ranker, I haven't actually seen Ranker's name come up much in the scratch racing, so maybe that's a call-in for this kind of style of racing. But they're pulling in nicely behind him, and he was just really throwing down the watts there. Looks like about Emmerich or Zils here coming through to take the lead. So these guys have got stronger riders in their team than I thought they did. I think we've always seen that kind of TM, Hats, Emmerich, but these other ones, Zilsa, Ranker, they've got some serious power numbers. It's good to see.
Well, it's interesting if you go into Zwift Power and take a look at their dimensions. I mean, you look at the avatar and it's quite hard to tell, but they are pretty big lads. They're all, a lot of them over 180 centimetres, a couple of them over 190 centimetres. So they're pretty solidly built and really powerful athletes. Definitely that's a frame we see be quite successful in rowing. Certainly that's the crossover there. They make very good Zwift riders and bike riders in general, the rowers. But their power for the 20 minutes, most of them are over that 5 watts per kg mark, and they're all quite heavy compared to some of the other teams. So considering that, I think they are going to be pretty hard to beat if they manage to keep it together. The only thing I think they need to be quite wary of, and they are in the dying ends here, so they've still got 5 and they're doing pretty well. But in general, in a team's time trial, is nobody accelerating too much or surging through too much, because sometimes that can just be the little thing that cracks somebody. But if they can all maintain a fairly average speed, and look at these heart rates, 188. I mean, he's pushing himself pretty hard here. They're moving fast. They're moving turns, swapping turns pretty quickly as well. So nobody's doing too much on the front, and they're going uphill at over 40 kilometres an hour. It was up to 4% when they were still going 40 kilometres an hour. So absolutely moving. So let's take a
Oh,
look at Deepak if we can. So I want to see what's happening here.
oh,
Whoa,
wow.
look at this
Oh,
guy.
man. This is what I said. Whoever of those two teams came over the top with 6 riders was going to crush it. And look how many Deepak's got. 6 riders. You got almost all Trons there. I mean, this is so fast moving. These guys are absolutely killing it. Riding 40k an hour there, up a 4% gradient. I mean, wow. I think, I don't know if I hold much hope for beast mode looking at this team now. 6 riders over that KOM. That's, it's almost unheard of on this course.
Well, and here's your boy, Sam Lindsay, the Kiwi. He's been incredibly strong the last couple of weeks. And again, he looks to be like he's really pulling the weight of this. He also looks like he's grown a bit of facial hair in the last couple of weeks. Or did he always have that beard? I'm not sure. I didn't notice it before, but it's on full show today. Sam Lindsay is certainly keeping the pace high for these guys.
Oh, he's doing really. I mean, he's always a bit of a fave of mine, being one of the few Kiwis in the field. But I'm loving it. Bevan as well. I mean, I know Bevan is a phenomenal sprinter. I thought maybe he would have been dropped on that climb, but I don't know if we have any replay of their climb. But they must have performed that so well, because those riders have very, very different power profiles, and they've managed to stay together, all of them, and come over the top. And this is just huge, because now they can push that power, which they do so well. Although they do have a little bit of a split here. They've just got to be a little bit careful. You can see Firminger, I think it is, just sprinting up a bit there. And that's what you said, Katie, was something to be aware of, was not those big surges to catch back on. Burns a few matches, but they've only got just over 2k to go.
Well, they're not too far behind catching beast mode, which blows my mind given how fast, organised and strong beast mode we're looking at there. I think beast mode could do a ripping job in Premier League, which goes to say that DPAC have well and truly earned their spot if that's what happens, and they're able to step up. Beast Mode have maintained a really fast power and pretty high powers as well, fast speed, pardon me. They are down to 5, so they did lose someone. At what stage we don't quite know, because we didn't see when exactly that happened. Their heart rates are really high, their powers are still high, they're ticking along, their speed. Look at that, nearly 60k an hour. It's kind of mind-blowing to think, isn't it, that Deepak's not too far behind.
I know, that's been an amazing team time trial. And if Deepak, can do that kind of performance, they definitely deserve to be in the Premier League. So that's what I love about this, is that these teams are kind of going mano a mano battling. And, there's been a dropout though, I think. Someone there, Ranker maybe? Dropped off way too quickly there. Maybe that was a bit of a strategic drop there, but that was a very fast drop off that main group, I think that was. So unfortunate there. But yeah, it's these two teams really deserve to be in Prem. You wish it could be both of them, but we have to see what happens in those playoffs coming up.
Yeah, we do have playoffs in week 7 and 8, so we're in week 5 now, so they've got another week ahead before that happens. I've been impressed with Beast Mode, regardless of what happens today or in the league. They've made a very big impact stepping in. This is their first season, and we've appreciated that, because it's really great to see such close and tight competition. It's certainly not over yet, regardless of what happens today. It's just one day, and they are tied on points overall. So, of course, and that's the thing, it's points. overall. So even if DPAC were to win by quite a time margin, the only thing that really does is allow them to incrementally go ahead of beast mode. But I think possibly from a mentality perspective, it might put a bit of a dent in these guys. So they're pushing all the way to the line here. It's Ranker who goes across quickly there. But look at
Whoa,
this, DPAC right on their
Deepak
heels.
passed them
This is a
already.
matter of
Oh,
seconds. Wow.
wow. They've put in a huge amount of time. That was amazing from Deepak and Cryogen just coming in too. But wow, I'd be ZWC as well, and Hashimoto. Hashimoto, our rider who I actually featured in one of my videos last week. Wasn't too impressed with the pink bike and the red kit, but very, very much impressed by his performance last week. Just huge effort. And these guys, very, very good performance too. I'll be really intrigued to see what those final standings are and those time gaps between all those teams, because I think it could be pretty tight.
Uh, that was that was a bit of an unexpected result, to be honest. And I think that Hashimoto particularly did a great performance. Now let's just take a look at what happens here in the runoff to join the Premier Division. We have 3 teams ahead up, but that does come across from the different divisions. So Friday, the 5th, and Saturday, the 6th, we've got the top 2 eligible teams, maximum 8 women's teams, and then we've got the points. The runoff system, Anna, that's pretty stressful, and there's quite a lot on the line for that.
Yeah, there is. So this is actually happening after week 8 of the current league we're in. So this is a 2 races in 2 days. It's pretty hard. You got a TTT race, you got a scratch race. The top 2 eligible teams from each A1 division across all of the Zwift Racing League, after these 8 regular season stages, will then battle for promotion in 1 points race on the Friday and 1 TT race on the Saturday. You can just see it here with the men's as well. All those A divisions at the bottom after week 8, those top 2 eligible teams from each of those will come through to those points and TTT competitions on, I'll say again, the 5th and 6th of March. And then the 3 teams, based in what I'd call that 2-day shootout, will get promoted as long as they meet all of the Zwift sort of data trainer standards, which teams will hear about. Those 3 teams will move up to the Prem division. So very, very exciting weekend of racing for the 5th and 6th of March. We will go back to the racing now. So the D category in the team time trial, but I'm super pumped about that, that style of the sort of what I do sort of call a 2-day shootout competition. It's sort of all for nothing, all or nothing.
I love the idea of it, and I think it'll certainly create some of the most exciting racing we'll get to see all season as it really heats up. And in effect, these are the races right now that they need to polish their craft. So even if they do, in some of the divisions, have a bit of a handy lead to go into those playoffs, this is the chance to try new things and see where they're at before they do have that 2-day shootout. I like how you call it that, shootout. It's a term cycling's never really used, but I think we probably should actually.
I don't even know where I got that from. I think maybe it's a running thing or something. But what also is super cool about that is it's not just your own sort of regional teams you need to worry about. So you might have, like we've talked about, Beast Mode and DPAC going up against each other. But what about the other teams they don't know about in EMEA or the Americas division? So you're going to have to start watching your competition, seeing what they're like, and making sure you're not just focusing on your own region. That's what's going to make it super exciting.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. If you have any aspirations of stepping up, you certainly need to start doing your research. Watch some of the racing, check out a lot of the data in Zwift Power, and take a look, see what the other teams are up and about. Now, this isn't textbook, what I would call textbook, Anna. We're looking at the Ds here, but a big gap here by RD. Now, this is where he needs to accelerate, or they're going to blow straight past him. We keep seeing this, and it's just happened again. So this is a mistake that a lot of riders, even some of the top teams, are making, that they're overcooking it just a little bit. The gap's opening up, so they are freewheeling
Whoa.
until,
Yeah,
oh, look, did someone go off into the bushes there? Crikey.
I think
That
so.
was a little bit of
They
a
do.
violent ejection from the Zwift world, wasn't it? Take
Yeah,
that.
quick pee or something. Yeah, crazy. Oh no.
Oh dear. But
Um,
yes, they do need to really watch out for that moment. And he did rejoin without too much difficulty there, but it could go either way. That is also a pretty critical moment when that gap can open up and really cause a lot of damage.
yeah, sort of. I think the teams that we've seen sort of know what they're doing and are nice and tight and cohesive have really nailed that downhill portion. Some teams we've really seen have just completely exploded, and like you saw just then, someone just kind of surged past the rest, and then someone rode off into the bushes, and then they were just a little bit all over the show. I think he's come back out though, so maybe a little detour around Central Park. Not quite sure what was going on there. Uh, but looking pretty good now. I do see this team, I believe, all have different sock colours, which sometimes is a indication of that's their order, maybe. The two at the front maybe have orange, but in the teams where they don't all necessarily speak the same language, sometimes they use things like sock colour or glove colour or different coloured trons and things, which is always kind of cool.
I mean, my brain doesn't really work like that, to be honest. If I was in a multilingual team and our language was remembering order by sock color, I would have to have a very big whiteboard in front of me detailing exactly what that meant for the moment. It made no sense to me. I did hear once that there was this study that when you are at sub-threshold level, your ability to do simple mathematics equations is actually increased by 20%. Um,
Ah,
that was, for the most part of the population. I think I fall into the other part of the population, where once the blood gets diverted, that's all out. But yes, apparently it can be very good for your cognitive function. So there you go. If anybody's pondering anything big, just jump on your bike. Don't go too hard, and it might do you wonders. You're going to try that now, aren't
wow.
you?
Who knew? I am. I'm going to set up my little calculator, get some maths problems, and get writing. But I got to say,
See how you go.
the heart rate these guys are going, I couldn't even add one and one. I don't think it's sort of like again, having someone who can be in your ear and just make it so simple uh, is just amazing. Like I was DSing for one of our teams this morning, and I had to do the kindy drop off and came into the DSing about 5 minutes late, and things had gone crazy already. And it was just one rider got a technical dropout, and then people couldn't remember the order, and someone was on someone else's wheel. And yeah, it is amazing when your heart rate jumps up to that 160, 170. Oh man, any decision making is just so tough.
Yeah, oh, look at that Adam Nightingale high from a windy, sleety Cornwall, the UK. He is certainly not complaining when it is 12 degrees uh, Celsius. So we've had a bit of a technical dropout on our end as well. Maybe there's a snowstorm at Zwift headquarters, and you've busted me with my nerdy glasses
I
on, Anna, trying
know.
to check out
I
all of the
love
details. Look at this.
it. Just keep you're talking about doing maths and logical problems. You're sitting there the whole time, weren't you?
I know. I mean, I like to tease you for your whiteboard and for what the numbers you like to do in the Zwift backend, but I've got to say it's kind of rubbing off at the moment. Now let's take a quick look at what's coming up with this Zwift Duathlon League. And Anna, I know that you've actually installed an extra television in front of your treadmill to join in on this.
Yeah, man, that's giving away too much about how obsessed I get about these things. But yes, I'm super excited for the Zwift Duathlon League. Yeah, 6 week, 6 week bike and run race. I mean, this is awesome. Who wouldn't want to run straight off a time trial bike? I know I love it. 35 minutes as far as you can go on the bike, and then run as far as you can go in 15 minutes, and then a 10-minute transition break between. Now, that's the part I've been thinking about a bit is how do you make sure you're not having any technical issues. I've got an extra long HDMI cable. So everyone, if you're doing this, make sure you've just maybe practiced that part. It's like practicing a transition in real life triathlon. You just want to make sure you got your running shoes and everything's set up okay. And yeah, I'm super pumped for this. Starting on the 17th of February. And not team based at the moment, but could be coming in the future. And yeah, you'll see me out there. I'll be rocking the headband on the bike and the run and in a green kit. So
And in real
come race
life, I
along and say
suspect
hi.
as well.
Oh, for
Well, and
sure. Of
look,
course, of
thankfully,
course.
the transition time, they give you 10 minutes to jump between the bike and the treadmill. So that is kind of helpful. Now, Anna, did I see something on your Instagram about a whole collection of headbands in different colours? And I feel like maybe I spotted an orange one in there somewhere that you might not want people to know about, since you complain about the
Oh, no,
colour orange
I
all
don't
the
mind.
time.
Well, it is a little bit of an issue in that the headband you wear on Zwift only comes in orange. And I started wearing it like a year ago, and now I feel like I can't not wear it. So then I had to buy a headband in real life to match the one in game. So yes, I have an orange headband, but sometimes I will wear a blue one. So I do switch the colors around.
All right, now we've just seen one of the most remarkable moments in the season so far, which was Deepak kind of, it's not too big a term, I say, kind of annihilating beast mode this evening. I, for one, did not expect that. And when we first saw beast mode come through, they were traveling so quickly that I was talking them up saying, wow, how incredible. Look at these guys. As a team director, because you're not only a rider, but you also play the role of team director, if a team's disappointed, and I know these beast mode riders will be a bit disappointed from this performance, how do you then rally them for the next week and make sure that they keep that motivation going? Because it's still a really tight race overall.
Yeah, I mean, I think what happens is you've got motivation on both sides. You've got Deepak who is super motivated because they've just crushed it. We assume. We haven't seen the results, but they definitely look like they crushed it. And then you've got Beast Mode who are going to be super motivated just because they didn't do as well as they wanted. So they'll be angry. So I think either way, they're going to be motivated. I think what we saw, though, interesting at the end was the smaller teams also doing really well. And I think they may sort of come to the forefront in some of these scratch races because what's happening a lot, which is really cool if you love a lot of drama, is teams are starting to poach other riders quite often, actually, because if you've got, say, Deepak and Beast Mode who are pushing forward into that sort of playoff round, then you may have a team from World Elite Zwifters or ZWC. They may say to one of those good riders, like a Hashimoto, come with us. We'll get up to Prem League. Just come join our team. So I think they'll be wanting to prove themselves as well. It's the last sort of 3 competitions coming up. Just give it everything you've got and start winning scratch races, and you'll get picked up by one of the future Prem teams.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit like Days of Our Lives meets Zwift, which I love. And for any of the mums out there who've spent needless hours at home with very small humans, or the dads, you all know what Days of Our Lives is. I don't know if they actually stream it in Germany, but if not, maybe you should get onto that and take a look. And across in the women's, we saw a bit of a role reversal between Aero and Z Sun, which was good. We've got results in, so we'll take a look at those, and we'll hopefully be able to see the times as well, because there might be a few surprises there. So Aero, a minute 18 ahead of Z Sun. I've got to say, I'm a bit surprised about that one.
Yeah, but look at those watts per kg. You've got 3.9 held by Aero versus 3.3 held by Z Thunderstruck. I think that just shows that Aero's team of 6 were just bigger hitters than the 6 of Z Sun, because we always only really see the top 3 duking it out. So I think Aero just overall had a stronger team of 6 women.
Yeah, well, and I also know that the Aero ladies had the national champs in their hometown over the weekend, so a bit of motivation there. In the B, we've got the Caffeines 6.8 seconds ahead of TBR Smile On. Now, that's a pretty tight time gap.
Yeah, and that's really interesting numbers because you've got Caffeines with only 5 riders riding at a lower watt per kg, but still beating TBR Smile On, who had 6 riders. And if you remember, the TBR Smile On team, who has always been a bit of a fave of ours, when we went over and watched them, they had exploded like, crazy. So I think that shows just what happens, a bit of inefficiency, and they paid for it on the day, unfortunately.
Yeah, now let's take a look over at the Division C. We've got We Ate the Cake. They looked fantastic all day. They 2 minutes 18 into the Spin Mafia. Rave C in third, the Cruzettes and the Comets in fourth and fifth, and they were pretty close actually between third, fourth and fifth. The Queen Bees, they were in sixth. Now they can do a lot better, Anna. They can go a lot faster. They just need to work on that technique a little bit, but I think they've got the horsepower. And the herd of funny eared, ratty looking things, the bilbies, they're in 7th.
And the D division, we have the Degenerates. They took it out 39.57, decent time. The Diamonds in 2nd, and CMA Girl Power with only 5 riders, but in 3rd.
All right, let's take a look at the fellas. DPAC. Oh, only 21 seconds. Okay. I was thinking, Anna, there were 1 minute time gaps. It was only a 30-second time gap, and that accounts for that. So 21 seconds. I apologise to the beast mode fellas, because I actually thought that there was a much bigger time gap there. But needless to say, Anna, massive ride from DPAC.
Oh gosh, that's 21 seconds is actually huge, and they rode at a lower watts per kg than beast mode. Just shows huge efficiency there. Started with 6, it did beast mode, but they dropped down to 5 at the end, and I think they paid for that quite a bit in that last portion. So good work to DPAC, they really dominated. And Smooth as Sun in 3rd, World Elite Zwifters in 4th, which is great performance from them. Team ZWC further down than I would have thought, 2 minutes off the pace of DPAC Elite. Cryogen Super Banyers in 6th, Evo Savages in 7th, WMZ All Stars 8th, Aero Masters in 9th, and TBR 54 Tooth in 10th.
All right, let's take a look at the Division B. The Blowflies, gosh, the bane of an Aussie summer there. They took the win ahead of the Barbarians. Actually quite apt, because Blowflies actually are Barbarians. And they were 15 seconds back. Gungnir, which always makes me think of Gangnam Style, that dance. I'm not sure why.
Oh, same.
Yeah, there you go. We'll just call them that. Cryogen Etna in 4th. Velo Club Mayo Sables, presented by Cycling Tips, longest team in the league, team name in 5th. The Zwift HQ Ravens in 6th, WMZ Bumble in 7th, the Z Sundries in 8th, and in 9th we've got the Big Ring 49 Tooth. Looks like they needed a slightly bigger Big Ring tonight to move up that chart. Maybe next week.
In the C's, Cryogen LT'd took that out. Sportive and Beer Rouleurs, which I love, in 2nd. AHDR Choppers in 3rd. Charlie in 4th. Haven't heard that name before. AHDR Chargers in 5th. Valhalla Levitin in 6th. 7th, the Big Ring 46 Tooth. 8th, Evo Flux 1. And 9th, TT1 Carbos.
So that is all the results we've got for now. We'll have to wait on D's. If you want to head over to WTRL.racing, you can check out all of the results from across the league. And I think I've exhausted all of my mum/dad jokes for one night. But it was an incredible week of racing. And are you racing tomorrow? Are you lining up, or are you being the DS?
No, I'm the DS. I'm always the DS in the team time trials. I still have PTSD from triathlon days of time trialing, so I don't particularly love the format. So I just like inflicting the pain, not actually going through it.
Excellent. But for anybody considering getting into it, don't be put off by Anna's experiences in the past. It really is a wonderful event. Get yourself involved. Well, thank you very much for joining us. Good luck to the team for tomorrow. Saris, the Pros Closet, Anna, you'll be directing them, so good luck to them. And we will see you next week for week 6. Week 6 already. Gee, how time flies in season 2. Oh, and very exciting, season 3 has been announced. And we're expecting some more announcements about the courses and the different formats. They're mixing things up a little bit there. So if you head over to the WTRL Facebook page, you can get involved in the chat there. Thank you very much for joining us, and we will see you same time, same place next week.
Sounds good.